lucky to have heard that original recording of a young man doing some woodwork in his workshop in 1537. Simply remarkable. Hello and welcome back to the final couplet with me, Theo Cowan. Here we are, it's Sonnet 128. Last week we looked at the first in the Dark Lady series. Of course, we've moved on from the fair youth, and Shakespeare has got someone else to obsess over for the next however many, 20 or so sonnets? And let's be honest, I think we were in need of a bit of a change, weren't we? We're all a bit sick of the fair youth. I mean, I'm speaking for myself here, but you've done 126 sonnets about one guy. It's time to move on, isn't it? And when they started repeating, when all of the themes started repeating again, I thought, come on, let's move on now. Anyway, luckily we have. So, let's take a listen to Sonnet 128. How oft when thou, my music playest upon the blessed wood, whose motion sounds with thy sweet fingers, when thou gently swayest the wiry concord that mine ear confounds. Do I envy those jacks that nimble leap to kiss the tender inward of thy hand, whilst my poor lips, which should that harvest reap, at the wood's boldness by thee blushing stand? To be so tickled they would change their state and situation with those dancing chips, o'er whom thy fingers walk with gentle gait, making dead wood more blessed than living lips. Since saucy jacks so happy are in this, give them thy fingers, me thy lips to kiss. Wowee. A saucy little sonnet, this one. Very sensual, I'd say. And actually, I don't know about you, but I found this one quite relatively simple to understand compared to some of his others. And it looks like, I mean, if we're getting very basic, it looks like he's watching this dark lady play the piano or the virginal, which was an instrument that was similar to the harpsichord, really. And he's seeing her tinkle away on those wooden keys, and he's going, bloody hell, I wish that I could have a bit of that action from her fingers on me and my lips. And he's getting very sort of turned on by it, really, by the sounds of it. And you know what? She sounds like a good pianist, does the dark lady. So fair play to her. But Shakespeare's not even thinking about the music, really. He's thinking, oh, I wish I was those keys, which is a little bit of a horny thought, isn't it, really? So that, to me, is the overall arc of the sonnet. But let's dive into this line by line and work out what the hell Shakespeare was going on about in Sonnet 128. So we start with, how oft when thou, my music playest upon the blessed wood, whose motion sounds with thy sweet fingers. This is all quite a big, long thought, but I think that's a good place to break it up there. And here he's saying, often when you, my music, so I guess, she is music to him. She is a delight to Shakespeare. So often when you, my music, my delight, play music by moving those little wooden keys on the virginal, the keyboard, with your sweet fingers. So essentially he's just setting the scene here. He's saying, when I watch you play the keyboard with your lovely, lovely sweet fingers. And then we continue with, when thou gently swayest the wiry concord that mine ear confounds. So here I think he's saying, when you play the keyboard, you're striking harmonies with your sweet fingers that almost overwhelm my ears. It's quite incredible, some of the music that you're producing, actually. So when that's happening, he continues with, do I envy those jacks that nimble leap to kiss the tender inward of thy hand. So here he has a weird thought, and he's going, God, I'm actually jealous of those keys. And jacks is another word for the wooden keys that she's playing, because those keys are sort of jumping up and kissing the tender inside of your hand. And God, I'm getting very jealous of those wooden keys. That's all I can say. I just wish I was those wooden keys. Bit of a weird thought, Shakespeare, but we'll let it go. Whilst my poor lips, which should that harvest reap, at the wood's boldness by thee blushing stand. So he stood there and he's watching these wooden keys touch the dark lady's fingers, and he's saying, all this is happening whilst my poor lips, which should be doing the kissing, by the way, stand by blushing at how bold the keys are to touch you like that in that way. So he's bringing these wooden keys to life, really, and sort of treating them like almost another lover with feelings, and he's saying these keys are being incredibly bold, by the way, to sort of touch you so tenderly. And look at my old lips, just sat there on my face. It's not on. They should be getting in on the action. I mean, it really sounds like he's taken some crazy drugs before he's written this one. He's just watching her play piano and he's gone into this other world. And it's a bit wild to say that the keys are being bold. She's playing the keys. They can't help it. Those poor wooden keys. They're being played by her, Shakespeare. Get that in your head. And then he continues with, to be so tickled, they would change their state and situation with those dancing chips. So he's still talking about his lips here. And he's saying, if my lips could be tickled like you're tickling those keys, they would happily change places and transform into the wooden keys that you're playing. And he continues that thought with, o'er whom thy fingers walk with gentle gait, making dead wood more blessed than living lips. So his lips would gladly change places with the keys, over which your fingers gently walk, making this, dead wood, essentially, that she's playing, more blessed than my, Shakespeare's, living lips. It's a bloody joke, isn't it? I mean, you're giving those wooden keys the time of their life, and my lips are just here, alive, ready, and not getting any action. So essentially, Shakespeare is saying that he's deeply jealous of these bits of dead wood that she is playing, which is a crazy thought, really. There's more things to be jealous of, Shakespeare, I'd say. Don't worry about the wooden keyboard. Don't worry about that. And now we are on to the final couplet. Since saucy jacks so happy are in this, give them thy fingers, me thy lips to kiss. So here he's sort of come to a compromise, an agreement almost with the woman and the keys and himself, his lips. And he's saying, since those cheeky little keys are so happy to touch your fingers, then give them your fingers. That's not a problem. But give me your lips to kiss. Let me kiss you. All right? I'm so happy for you to tinkle around on those wooden keys, and the keys are clearly very happy at you tinkling around as well. But give me your lips. Give me a kiss now. It's crazy. It is a crazy thought. Imagine hearing this. You've just finished playing a little ditty on the piano, and then Shakespeare comes over and goes, God, those keys, whoo, lucky, aren't they? Very lucky keys. I wish I was those keys. Anyways, so do you fancy a kiss? Or it's a very strange sonnet, this one, but I do quite like it in a weird way. There's something very sexual and sensual and interesting about sort of the personification of these wooden keys. And I can really envisage her fingers sort of dancing over them delicately and caressing them in a way. and Shakespeare getting all hot under the collar about it. So that is Sonnet 128. Shakespeare watching this woman play the keyboard and getting jealous of the wooden keys under her fingers, and imagining that, God, that would be amazing if my lips could take their place. And then at the end going, all right, let's compromise. The keys can have your fingers, that's absolutely fine, but I want to kiss you on the lips. That is Sonnet 128 in a nutshell, but he's obviously written it in a lovely way because it's Shakespeare. Right, I think it's about time we put this to our story. And if you remember last week, Shakespeare was in the pub. He's moved to Stratford-upon-Avon, of course. He's left London. And he's in the pub and he sees the dark lady across the bar, and he is completely struck by her beauty and her dark features. And he's sort of saying, you know, you're different to a lot of ladies, by the way. You don't cover up your face and your fair features and your ugly features with makeup and cosmetics, and I'm into that. And he tries to have a little chat with her, and she's not really having any of it, and she leaves the pub. So he thinks, you know what, it's time I wrote a sonnet, isn't it? Because that is what he likes to do. And he writes Sonnet 127 and gets it published in the local Stratford paper. He then goes to collect the paper from the local off-licence and pops down to the pub in the hope that he bumps into the dark lady again. And lo and behold, there she is in the pub. And Shakespeare sort of says, have a little read of that. And she doesn't really respond. And so he thinks, well, I'm going to have to read it out loud. So he reads Sonnet 127 that was published in the paper to the dark lady in the pub. And, to be honest, the rest of the pub as well. They're all listening in. And it's all about her dark features and how beautiful she is and how she's not covering it up with cosmetics, etc., etc. So let's see how that goes down with the dark lady and how Sonnet 128 fits into all this. Shakespeare finishes reading Sonnet 127 to the dark lady in the pub, and indeed the rest of the pub as well. There is a slight pause, and then a cheer goes up. Wow, Shakespeare, what a writer! Ho, ho, ho! I agree with you about cosmetics and the likes, is what the people in the pub say. The dark lady, however, remains quiet. Contemplative in a way. Shakespeare sidles over to her. Everyone in the pub is clapping him on the back, saying, what a bloody good job, Shakespeare. You are a hell of a writer. Better than that Marlowe and that Ben Jonson. And Shakespeare goes, yeah, thank you. Thanks, everyone. Cheers. It was just a sonnet really for this lovely lady. And everyone's going, oh, she would be so lucky to have you, Shakespeare. And Shakespeare says to the dark lady, did you hear that? Just people saying that obviously you'd be lucky to be with me. And so yeah, what did you think of the sonnet? And she looks up at him with her dark, almost intimidating eyes. And she says, well, it was all right, wasn't it? And Shakespeare says, well, a little bit better than all right, I'd say. I thought it was rather good, rather mind-blowing, if I do say so myself. And she says, well, I've heard better writers. I've heard better sonnets. Sorry to say. And Shakespeare says, oh, well, right, no, well, that's absolutely fine. Of course you have. I just sort of wanted to get across how I feel about your beauty. And she says, well, yes, thank you. I appreciate it. And Shakespeare said, look, I would love to be so bold as to ask you to go on a date. The dark lady says, yes, that is bold of you to assume that I would want to go on a date with you. But I suppose if you want to see more of me, I'm hosting a little get-together tomorrow night in my house at 27 Petticoat Lane, Stratford-upon-Avon. And Shakespeare says, fantastic, I'll be there. And she says, yes, well, maybe you will, maybe you won't. Doesn't matter to me. And with that, she finishes her drink and leaves the pub. Shakespeare runs home happily. He dances through the streets. He thinks, God, I've been invited to a party by the most beautiful woman in town. Lucky me. He could hardly sleep that night, he was so excited. And eventually, it was the next evening. Shakespeare spent hours getting ready. He even bought a new earring for the occasion, a lovely little gold-hooped one. He slicked his hair back, put on his best garters, and hopped down the street to the dark lady's house. He knocked on the door, and a man let him in. He said, "Hello, I'm here for the party." The man says, yes, come in, we're all having a good time. Have a drink and just sit and relax and make friends. And Shakespeare says, oh, thanks, great to be here. And he walks into the drawing room. There's lots of people milling about. Shakespeare has a chat here and there, and he's looking for the dark lady, but he can't find her. And eventually, she wanders in to the drawing room. And Shakespeare says, hello, good to see you. Thanks so much for inviting me. And she barely even glances at him. She walks or glides over to the virginal, aka the keyboard. A hush descends over the guests as she starts playing the most gorgeous piece of music. Everyone is transfixed, Shakespeare especially. And as he listens to the music, he can't help but think, oh, what I would do to be that piano. Oh, to be played by this beautiful woman. Oh, I wish it were me, he thinks. And as she plays, Shakespeare decides to jot down a little sonnet that he will read to her and everyone after her performance. It might be a little bold of him, he thinks, but he must say how he wants to be those lovely wooden keys. Oh, to be those keys, he thinks. He finishes his sonnet and listens to the rest of the piece. Eventually she finishes and everyone applauds. Shakespeare decides to shoot his shot. He stands up, clears his throat and says, ladies and gentlemen, may I read to you a sonnet that I've just written, that I was inspired to write by this gorgeous woman and this gorgeous piece of music that she played. And everyone looks at him and some people mutter, well, it's not going to be as good as the music we just heard, but give it a go, mate. And Shakespeare begins to sweat a little. He suddenly becomes quite nervous and realises the sonnet he's about to read to everyone is quite personal and almost sexual in a way. And he thinks that maybe he should just read it to the dark lady, but everyone is here listening now, and he must read the sonnet he has just written. So, without further ado, he clears his throat, and to everyone in the drawing room, including the beautiful dark lady, he reads Sonnet 128. Often when you, my music, play music on those little wooden keys of the keyboard with your sweet fingers, striking harmonies that overwhelm my ears, I get jealous of the keys. They jump up and kiss the tender inside of your hand, whilst my poor lips, who should be doing the kissing, stand by blushing at how bold the keys are to touch you like that. If my lips could be tickled like those keys, they would gladly transform into wood and change places with the keys over which your fingers gently walk, making dead wood more blessed than my living lips. Since those cheeky keys are so happy to touch your fingers, give them your fingers, but give me your lips to kiss. So there we have it, Sonnet 128 and the story to go with it. Shakespeare is being very bold to read that rather personal sonnet out loud to everyone, and I for one am excited to see how the elusive dark lady receives that sonnet and what happens next. So join me next week to find out. Until then,